Hello there, my friends. You've just stepped into a place where history is more than just a series of dates and events, it's a living, breathing story that connects us all. This is Unleashed, a channel that takes you beyond the textbooks, beyond the classroom, and into the heart of the stories that have shaped our world. Today, we're diving into the rich history of Norway, a country that's not only known for its breathtaking fjords, majestic mountains, and endless midnight sun, but also for its incredible journey through time. From the fearless Vikings who explored distant shores, to the modern-day leaders who've shaped the country's future with a commitment to peace, equality, and sustainability, Norway's story is one of resilience, strength, and transformation. And I'm here to take you on a journey through it all. Before we speak of kings and conquerors, of ships and storms, let us go further back, long before the world knew the name Norway. You see, my dear listener, history doesn't start with the mighty. It begins with the quiet, with the humble whispers of life that echo from forgotten valleys and windswept coasts. Our story begins over 10,000 years ago, just as the last ice age released its frozen grip. As the glaciers withdrew, slowly revealing the contours of this rugged land, the first peoples came. They were hunter-gatherers, nomads with no written language, but with knowledge passed down through firelight and footsteps. These were the first Norwegians, though they did not call themselves so. They followed the herds reindeer mostly, tracking across vast tundras and forests, settling along the coastline where the sea teemed with life. Tools of stone, bone, and wood were their only possessions. With flint knives and animal hides, they carved out lives in a land still raw and wild. Let me tell you a tale, passed down in whispers by the Sami, the indigenous people of the north. A boy named Andy, barely old enough to carry a bow, learned from his elders how to read the wind, track the snow hare, and respect the spirit of every tree. The world around him wasn't something to conquer, it was something to listen to. And in that listening, he grew strong. The Sami knew the land not by ownership, but by relationship. The earth fed them, clothed them, warned them when storms approached. Their language carried no word for wilderness, for they did not believe they were separate from nature. Can you imagine that? Today, we measure success in numbers and glass towers. But once, it was measured in knowledge of the stars, in warmth found in the middle of a blizzard, and in stories carved onto reindeer drums. Archaeologists have found traces of these early lives, arrowheads in marshes, cave paintings, fragments of cooking pots by the sea. These discoveries remind us that our ancestors weren't savages, but survivors. They knew how to fish, how to tan hides, how to weave birch bark into containers. They raised their children not with wealth, but with wisdom. Between 1400 and 1800 before Common Era, the Neolithic Age took hold. People began farming, settling for longer periods, and domesticating animals. This shift didn't come with fanfare, but with patience, seeds in the soil, stones shaped into plows. Small communities grew, often around rivers and fjords. Life was still hard, but it was a bit more predictable. And that was a treasure in itself. They began to bury their dead with care, graves lined with stones, sometimes with tools or beads placed beside the bones. It shows us something deeply human. They hoped for something more beyond death. They believed in ancestors, spirits, and the power of the unseen. As I walk through these modern lands, Bergen, Stavanger, Tromsø, I sometimes close my eyes and imagine what it was like thousands of years ago. No roads. No power lines. Just the wind in the trees, the cry of seabirds, and the sound of footfalls in fresh snow. And yet, the people who lived here were not so different from us. They loved. They feared. They taught their children to survive. They gathered for rituals, shared meals, and celebrated the turning of the seasons. Their lives may seem simple to us, but in truth, they were deeply connected to each other and to this land. This was Norway, long before it was a kingdom. A land of mystery, of elemental beauty, and of endurance. So you see, before the Vikings, before the kings and battles, there were people just like you and me. They dreamed under the same stars. Their stories echo in our blood. And as we move forward in this tale, into the age of sails and sagas, remember, greatness isn't always loud. Sometimes, it starts in silence. In patience. In survival. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss the next stories. The Viking Age, raiders, traders, explorers. Now we enter the heart of the story, the Age of the Vikings. If you've ever heard of them, it's likely through stories of fierce raids, massive ships, and relentless warriors. But there is so much more to their tale. Let me share with you the truth of the Vikings, who are often misunderstood. They were not just raiders, they were traders, explorers, and visionaries. The first winds of change. The Viking Age officially began around 793 Common Era, with the raid on Lindisfarne, a small island off the coast of England. That raid, so sudden and shocking, sent ripples throughout Europe. But it was no accident. The Vikings didn't simply wake up one morning and decide to plunder. They were born from a land where survival was hard-earned, where the harshness of the environment shaped their souls. They were raised to be both hunters and gatherers, and later, with the introduction of ships, they became masters of the sea. Picture this: long, cold winters where daylight barely touched the land. How did a people, living in such isolation, ever come to dominate the oceans? The answer lies in their ingenuity. Their longships were not just vessels, they were miracles of design. Sleek, fast, and built for the unpredictable waters of the North Sea, these ships allowed the Vikings to raid, trade, and explore far beyond their shores. The Vikings, masters of the sea. Imagine the scene. A calm night at sea, the stars overhead, the wind steady in the sails. The sound of oars dipping in unison, carving through the water. In these ships, the Vikings ventured far from Norway's fjords, across Europe, through the Mediterranean, and even into the Americas. They didn't just go to fight, they went to discover, to connect, to trade. Yes, indeed, it's true, Vikings were some of the first Europeans to reach North America, hundreds of years before Columbus. They called it Vinland, and while their settlements there were short-lived, they left behind traces of their presence in Newfoundland, Canada. But their most extensive travels were closer to home, down the rivers of Russia, through England, Ireland, and France, all the way to Byzantium and the Islamic caliphates. The Vikings didn't just plunder, they traded in silk, spices, and amber, exchanging goods and stories with distant lands. And through this, they left a deep cultural mark. Just imagine, each raid and trade mission was a lesson in endurance, a statement of ambition. And it was here, in these ventures, that their true legacy was shaped. Now, let me take you deeper into the heart of Viking life. When the sun dipped low and the warriors returned from their travels, the evenings were filled with sagas, epic tales of gods, heroes, and the history of their ancestors. These were not just stories to pass the time. No, these sagas were a way of teaching the next generation. The Vikings didn't write much, but they spoke. They remembered. And they taught through memory. As a young boy, I'd listen to these stories from my grandfather. Oh, how they painted vivid images in my mind. Ragnar Lothbrok, the fearless Viking king. Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red, who sailed into unknown lands. Freydis Erik's daughter, his sister, who stood fiercely against her enemies in Vinland. These characters, these figures, were more than legends. They were the guiding stars for a people who saw the world not as an obstacle, but as a challenge to overcome. Viking society, a balance of might and honor. But it wasn't all violence. No, the Vikings had a complex and fascinating society. At the core of their beliefs was the idea of honor. A man's word, his ability to uphold his promises, was more valuable than gold. The Vikings were not only warriors, they were also farmers, blacksmiths, and traders. They had a deep respect for craftsmanship and trade. Take, for example, the Althing, the first known parliament in the world, established in Iceland in 930 CE. Here, people came together not only to settle disputes but to discuss matters of law and governance. Can you believe that? Even in the midst of their fierce reputation, the Vikings understood that to build a lasting civilization, one needed structure. They were more than just a collection of raiders, they were pioneers of law and democracy. And then, there's the Viking ship burial. When a noble warrior died, he was buried with his possessions, sometimes even with a ship, to carry him into the afterlife. But this wasn't just superstition. It was a belief in the continuity of life, a reminder that even in death, a person could carry on. It's a belief that resonates even today in our modern world, how we honor the lives of those who came before us and carry their legacy forward. But let us not romanticize it too much. For the Vikings, like any people, were a product of their time. They fought fierce battles, and many lives were lost. Yet, in their raids, in their battles for land, power, and riches, they built a legacy that still shapes the world today. Take King Harald Fairhair, who united the small Norse kingdoms into the first united kingdom of Norway. His reign set the course for the nation we know today. It wasn't just a matter of power, it was about vision. He understood that Norway, with its fjords and mountains, had potential that could only be fully realized if the people were united. The end of the Viking Age. Eventually, all things come to an end. By the late 11th century, the Viking Age began to wane. The spread of Christianity, changing trade routes, and growing kingdoms in Europe shifted the tides of power. The old ways gave way to new kingdoms and alliances. Yet, even as the Vikings' physical dominance faded, their cultural legacy persisted. Oslo, Bergen, and Trondheim became the heart of a growing Norway. The great stories of the sagas lived on. As we look back on these bold Viking days, we must remember that their influence stretches far beyond the ships they sailed and the lands they conquered. The Vikings, with their courage, vision, and sense of adventure, left a mark not just on history but on the very essence of the Norwegian spirit. And we, today, carry that same fire within us. The fire that dares to venture into the unknown. The Rise of Kings, unification under Harald Fairhair. Stay with us as we uncover more stories of the legendary figures who shaped this nation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts on the Vikings and their legacy. Wonderful! Let's dive into the Rise of Kings, unification under Harald Fairhair. Here, we explore how the Vikings' kingdom evolved and how a powerful leader united Norway into one kingdom, shaping its future. The Rise of Kings, unification under Harald Fairhair. The days of the Vikings are behind us now, but let us not forget their story didn't end with their ships. No, my dear listener, the legacy of those wild and daring days would shape the future of this land. It was a time when one man's vision would change the course of history forever. That man was Harald Fairhair, a king whose name has resonated through the ages. A kingdom in pieces. Before Harald Fairhair came to power, Norway wasn't the unified kingdom we know today. It was a land of small, fragmented kingdoms, each ruled by its own local chieftain. The Viking Age had left its mark on the land, with scattered territories, places like Vestfold, Hordaland, and Trøndelag, each with their own customs, their own ways of life. While the Vikings had been united in spirit, in their raids and conquests, they were not a united nation. Each chieftain ruled his people with great independence, and warfare between these small kingdoms was common. The land was wild, untamed, and divided. But then came Harald Fairhair, born in 850 CE, in a time of great uncertainty. The legend of Harald Fairhair. Legend has it that Harald Fairhair vowed to unite Norway under one banner after a woman named Gyda rejected his advances, claiming she wouldn't marry a man who didn't rule over all of Norway. Whether you believe in the tale of love or not, there's truth in his ambition. Harald had one goal: to bring all the lands under his control. At the time, he was a young chieftain in Vestfold, a wealthy region with a strong fleet of ships. He didn't have the power to challenge the other kings yet. But his vision was clear. Through fierce battles, strategic alliances, and marriages, Harald began his campaign to unite the kingdoms of Norway. Imagine a young warrior, commanding a fleet of ships, moving from one fjord to another, rallying allies, and challenging those who stood against him. One by one, Harald defeated rival kings, and with each victory, his kingdom grew larger. His army was formidable, his resolve unwavering. As he traveled across the land, it is said that he would stop at nothing to see his vision realized. His battles were bloody, there's no denying that. But they were also necessary. The kings and chieftains who resisted Harald's rule saw their lands slip away, one by one. Harald's ambition was unstoppable. He fought from the southern tip of Norway, near Skagerrak, to the northernmost reaches of the land, in the far reaches of Troms. But it was more than just warfare. Harald, like his Viking ancestors, understood that to build a lasting kingdom, there had to be more than just power. There had to be unity. After years of struggle and countless victories, Harald became the first king to rule over all of Norway. He was crowned in 872 CE, marking the beginning of a united kingdom that would grow into the country we know today. The challenge of unity. However, unity was not easily achieved. It is said that once Harald was crowned king, he established a system of local governance, with loyal chieftains ruling smaller regions, as long as they swore allegiance to him. The Althing in Iceland, for example, continued to be a place where people could meet and discuss laws, but it was now done under the banner of Harald's authority. But Harald's reign was not one of peace. While he succeeded in unifying Norway, his kingdom was far from stable. He faced constant challenges from rival kings and rebellious chieftains who resented his rule. There were many battles, many skirmishes, but Harald was relentless. And let me tell you something, my friend, in the heart of every leader, there must be both strength and wisdom. Harald's ability to balance the two is what kept his kingdom together. He knew that he had to give his people a sense of belonging. He forged alliances through marriage, promising his daughters to other powerful families, strengthening the political bonds across the kingdom. A kingdom transformed. One of Harald's most significant achievements was the building of the Norwegian monarchy, which laid the foundation for future kings. His vision wasn't just about warfare or conquest, it was about creating a lasting legacy. The territories of Norway were under the same rule. It was during Harald's reign that the foundations of Norwegian law and order were solidified. Imagine living in a time when a single, strong leader unites scattered lands and peoples under one law. It was a time of great change. No longer were these lands defined by local chieftains and their petty rivalries. Now, there was a kingdom, one that could stand strong against invaders and rivals alike. Harald's reign saw the establishment of a centralized administration. He began to organize the kingdom into regions, each governed by his appointed officials. While there were still challenges to his rule, Norway was finally on the path to becoming the unified nation that would later stand tall in Europe. As time passed, Harald Fairhair's reign marked the end of the Viking Age. The constant warfare and raiding were replaced with the challenge of state-building, creating a society where once thriving raiders now had to learn the ways of governance, trade, and diplomacy. Harald's kingdom was the beginning of something bigger. He was the first to prove that a collection of small, feuding tribes could come together under one rule. His legacy, though filled with hardship, bloodshed, and sacrifice, was the foundation for a powerful nation. The legacy of Harald Fairhair. But the true measure of a king is not how many lands he conquers, it is how his reign shapes the future. And Harald, with all his strength and ambition, laid the first stone in the long journey of building Norway. His descendants would go on to face challenges of their own. Some would expand the kingdom further, while others would have to defend it against invaders. But the kingdom stood strong because of Harald's unification. Even today, in every corner of Norway, whether it be in the fjords, the mountains, or the towns by the coast, you'll find remnants of Harald's influence. His reign marked the start of a new chapter, a chapter where Norway would one day rise to be one of the wealthiest nations in the world, where it would be known not just for its warriors, but for its wisdom, its art, and its innovation. So, as you sit here with me today, remember this: there was a time when the world saw this land as fragmented and untamed. Yet, through the ambition, the vision, and the struggles of one man, Harald Fairhair, this land became something more than a collection of clans. It became Norway. And just as Harald united the disparate peoples of Norway, so too can we find ways to unite, through strength, wisdom, and the belief that no matter how vast or divided our world may seem, we can find common ground. Let's delve into how the arrival of Christianity transformed Norwegian society and sparked internal conflict, as the ancient Viking traditions collided with the new Christian faith. The Age of Christianity, Conversion and Conflict. Ah, the winds of change blow across this land, my friend. Just when it seemed that the Vikings had shaped everything in their image, something far greater came, something that would change Norway forever. That change came in the form of Christianity. A clash of beliefs. It was the end of the 10th century, a time when the Viking Age was still fresh in the minds of many. Viking warriors, with their gods of thunder and battle, their seafaring ways, and their strong warrior ethos, ruled the shores of Norway. But a new belief system was spreading throughout Europe, a belief that would challenge everything the Vikings knew. The conversion of Norway to Christianity was no simple matter. It wasn't a peaceful shift, it was a battle of ideals, a clash of worldviews. The first Christian influence came from the outside, as missionaries and traders from the Christian kingdoms of Europe began to settle in the lands of the Norsemen. But this wasn't just a matter of religion, it was about politics, too. The kings of Europe saw Christianity as a way to strengthen their rule, to bring unity to their lands. And so, when the first kings of Norway saw the potential of Christianity, they, too, began to look at this new faith as a tool for consolidating power. The first seeds of Christianity in Norway. Now, let's start with King Olaf Tryggvason, one of the first kings who saw the power of Christianity and pushed it across Norway. Olaf was born around 963 CE, and his reign lasted from 995 to 1000. His rise to power is as legendary as it is controversial. Olaf was a man of immense strength and charisma, and he believed that Christianity was not just a faith, but a path to unity for his divided kingdom. Imagine this: Olaf standing before his warriors, his face lit by the firelight of a great Viking feast. His eyes glinting with ambition, he spoke not just of battle and glory, but of a new world, a world that stretched beyond the Viking ships and their raids, a world where one God reigned over all. His goal was to bring the Christian faith to Norway by force if necessary. And that's exactly what he did. Olaf sought to convert the people of Norway to Christianity, but his methods were as brutal as they were bold. He ordered the destruction of pagan temples and forced his people to accept baptism. He would travel to villages, baptizing the people by the sword if they resisted. Those who clung to the old gods were given a choice: accept the Christian faith, or face the wrath of the king. The conversion of Norway, under Olaf's rule, was a blood-soaked affair, one where pagan gods were toppled and Christian crosses were raised in their place. Olaf believed that Christianity would bring Norway closer to the rest of Europe, and that it would make his kingdom stronger, more unified. Resistance and rebellion. But Olaf's methods were not without resistance. Many of the Old Norse chieftains and common folk still clung fiercely to their pagan beliefs. For them, the gods of their ancestors were powerful, and their traditions were woven into the very fabric of their lives. How could they abandon the ways of their fathers? To them, the Christian faith seemed alien, even oppressive. It is said that in some places, great battles raged, not just with swords, but with the spirit. Pagan priests and the followers of the old gods fought back against the encroaching tide of Christianity. The Viking world, as they knew it, was coming to an end. Old ways of life, old rituals, old gods, all of them were being swept away. And yet, Olaf was relentless. His kingdom expanded, and with it, Christianity slowly took root. He was a visionary, yes, but also a man driven by force and conquest. The role of Saint Olaf. While Olaf Tryggvason's reign was marked by this intense push for conversion, it was his successor, Saint Olaf, who would leave the most profound legacy in Norway's Christianization. Olaf Haraldsson, known as Saint Olaf, was born in 995 CE. He was the son of King Harald Sigurdsson and became a key figure in the battle for the soul of Norway. Saint Olaf's reign, which began in 1015, was marked by an even more determined effort to unite Norway under Christianity. Unlike Olaf Tryggvason, however, Saint Olaf sought to build bridges, not just to force conversion. He saw the church as a source of law and order and began to lay the groundwork for a Christian kingdom that would stand for centuries to come. St. Olaf's most notable achievement was the establishment of churches across Norway and the foundation of the Archbishopric of Nidaros, now Trondheim. This was a strategic move, as it placed Norway firmly within the sphere of influence of the Papal Church. By aligning with Rome, St. Olaf not only secured Norway's religious future but also strengthened its position within Europe. But even as St. Olaf worked to spread Christianity peacefully, there were those who still resisted. In 1030 CE, he was defeated in the Battle of Stiklestad, a battle that would ultimately seal his legacy. Though he died that day, his death was seen as a martyrdom, and he was soon after canonized as a saint. Christianity's long shadow. After St. Olaf's death, Christianity slowly but surely took hold across Norway. By the time of his canonization, the Church's influence was undeniable. No longer were the Norse gods worshipped in the fjords and mountains. Instead, Christianity became the state religion, and the old temples were replaced with churches made of stone and wood. But Christianity wasn't just a change of belief, it was also a change in governance. The Church became a central pillar of Norwegian life. Christian laws were enacted, and the old ways of Viking justice began to fade. The introduction of Christianity also meant the end of certain Viking practices, such as human sacrifice, which had been part of the old religious rituals. Today, in every village and town across Norway, you will find churches built in honor of this great shift in history. The churches not only symbolize the Christian faith but also represent the stability and unity that Christianity brought to the land. From the fiery days of the Viking raids to the quiet Christianized shores of Norway, this transformation was nothing short of profound. Christianity helped shape Norway's identity, a nation that would not only be shaped by its warriors and its kings but also by its faith. A new Norway emerges. In the end, the conversion to Christianity was a pivotal moment in Norway's history. While it came with conflict and struggle, it also brought with it the promise of unity. Through the battles of Olaf Tryggvason and the peaceful efforts of St. Olaf, Norway emerged as a nation united under a common faith. And as the centuries passed, that unity would prove essential in forging a strong, prosperous nation. As you look out across the land, from the majestic fjords to the towering peaks, remember, it was not just the sword of the Vikings that shaped this land, but also the faith that took root here. It was the faith of St. Olaf, and the countless others who followed, that guided Norway into a new era. The rise of the kingdom, kings and queens of Norway. The rise of the kingdom, kings and queens of Norway. Ah, there's something about standing here, looking at the stone walls that echo with centuries of history. These very walls have witnessed the rise of a kingdom, not just built on the will of gods, but on the ambition of men. Today, we journey through the rise of the monarchy, the foundation of Norwegian kingship, and the trials and triumphs of the kings and queens who shaped this land. The early kings of Norway. Our story picks up in the aftermath of Christianization, when the land of the Norsemen, once ruled by numerous tribes and chieftains, began to consolidate under the authority of a single monarch. This process of unification was long and fraught with struggles. The idea of a single, unified Norway seemed distant, but the rise of certain kings brought the dream of a kingdom together. Let's begin with Harald Fairhair, the legendary king who, according to tradition, united Norway into a single kingdom. Harald, born in 850 CE, was the son of a local ruler. As a young man, he grew tired of the chaos and division caused by the many smaller kingdoms scattered across the Norwegian landscape. He sought to unite them, and by 900 CE, Harald had succeeded in consolidating most of the lands under his rule. Now, mind you, Harald did not accomplish this through diplomacy alone. He was no stranger to battle. With his sword in hand and his ambitions as sharp as his blade, he defeated the rival chieftains one by one. Legend says that he promised not to cut his hair until he had unified Norway, which is why he became known as Harald Fairhair, a name that evokes strength, unity, and perhaps a little vanity. His long, flowing hair became a symbol of the Norwegian kingdom he had forged. A kingdom divided, struggles for the throne. Though Harald Fairhair's reign was a triumph in many ways, it wasn't without its struggles. The unity he built was fragile, and the kingdom was divided among his sons after his death. This division would mark the beginning of several centuries of political strife, where various branches of the royal family vied for the throne. The legacy of Harald Fairhair was that his sons and their descendants would continue to battle for control of Norway. Some of these kings were remembered as wise and strong, while others were seen as weak, unable to hold on to the fragile unity their father had built. In the centuries that followed, there was no shortage of bloodshed and rebellion as rival factions sought to claim the throne. But amid this turmoil, Norway's royal lineage began to solidify, and the country slowly began to find its way toward a more unified monarchy. The rise of the Viking kings. While the struggle for the throne continued, it was during the Viking Age, when the Norsemen were at their peak as seafarers, traders, and conquerors, that the kings of Norway began to expand their reach beyond the fjords of Scandinavia. The great Viking raids were a key moment in the expansion of Norwegian influence. One such Viking king was Olaf II Haraldsson, or Saint Olaf, the king who would later become a martyr for the Christian faith. Olaf, like his predecessors, faced a constant struggle to maintain control over his kingdom. He was not only engaged in military battles but also in efforts to convert Norway to Christianity, as we've seen. His reign, though short, had a lasting impact on the development of the monarchy. His death in 1030 during the Battle of Stiklestad was a turning point. Despite his defeat, Olaf's death and subsequent canonization transformed him into a symbol of Christian kingship. His influence continued long after his passing, as his followers looked to him as a unifying force that helped shape the future of Norway. A kingdom in flux, struggles with power. But let us not think for a moment that the life of the king was an easy one. The 11th century was a time of political instability, and the monarchy faced constant threats from internal and external forces. There were battles with Sweden, Denmark, and even rebellious nobles within Norway itself. Norway's monarchs struggled to maintain power over an increasingly fractured kingdom. For much of this time, Norway was not a unified kingdom but rather a collection of competing territories, each with its own local rulers and chieftains. The monarchy struggled to establish its authority over these regions. But the idea of a strong, central monarchy continued to grow. Kings like Harald Hardrada, known as the last great Viking king, sought to expand their influence, not only over Norway but over other regions as well. Harald, who ruled from 1046 to 1066, was a bold and ambitious king, known for his military conquests, including his ill-fated attempt to claim the English throne. Harald Hardrada and the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Harald Hardrada's reign marked a significant chapter in Norwegian history, for it was under his leadership that Norway became embroiled in a battle that would change the course of history. In 1066, Harald Hardrada famously sailed to England with his army, seeking to claim the throne for himself. But in the Battle of Stamford Bridge, he faced a powerful English army led by King Harold Godwin's son. Though Harold's forces were formidable, they were exhausted from their long journey, and the battle ended in a decisive defeat for Norway. Harald Hardrada was killed on the battlefield, and with his death, the last of the great Viking kings fell. This marked the end of the Viking Age in Norway, and the beginning of a new era, one where the country would increasingly turn inward and focus on internal development rather than external conquests. The rise of the Norwegian crown. Despite the challenges of the Viking Age and the tumultuous reigns of earlier monarchs, the monarchy of Norway began to mature in the centuries that followed. The royal family became more centralized, and over time, the monarchy would come to represent stability and order in a kingdom once torn apart by internal strife. The establishment of the crown as a powerful institution helped foster a sense of national identity. As the centuries passed, the monarchy would continue to shape the country's future. The rise of the Norwegian monarchy led to a stronger sense of unity, and the kingdom slowly began to see the fruits of this centralization. Today, we remember the kings and queens of Norway, not just as warriors or rulers, but as symbols of unity. From the time of Harald Fairhair to the reign of Harald Hardrada, and even to the modern royal family, Norway's monarchy has helped shape the nation's identity. The struggles of those early kings and queens paved the way for a stronger, more unified country. The monarchy may have evolved over time, but its core remains the same, a symbol of strength, unity, and the spirit of the Norwegian people. Norway in the Middle Ages, politics, plague, and power. Continue to stay with us as we dive into Norway's medieval history, exploring the political struggles, the ravages of plague, and the growth of power in the monarchy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this historical journey with others. Let's uncover more of Norway's secrets together. The rise of the kingdom. Norway in the Middle Ages, politics, plague, and power. The Middle Ages, an era of both great promise and peril. This was a time when the world seemed to teeter on the edge of chaos, yet the roots of modern-day Norway were planted deep in these centuries. The Middle Ages in Norway were marked by political intrigue, plagues, and, yes, the consolidation of power, all of which shaped the nation's destiny in ways you might not expect. The Norwegian kingdom and the union with Denmark. The 12th and 13th centuries were pivotal times in Norway's development. During this period, the monarchy became increasingly centralized as it sought to strengthen its grip on power. However, as in all great kingdoms, ambition often meets its challenges, particularly when neighboring lands start casting their eyes upon your throne. By the early 1300s, Norway found itself in a precarious position. The kingdom, having endured many challenges, faced a period of internal strife, and the Norwegian kings were unable to secure a lasting dynasty. This led to a series of weak rulers and, eventually, to the Union of Kalmar in 1397, a political alliance between Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. But don't be fooled by the notion of unity. The union was not about creating a harmonious partnership, it was, in fact, a way for Denmark to exert its control over the Scandinavian nations. For centuries, Norway was treated as a mere appendage of Denmark ruled by Danish monarchs, with its own sovereignty continually eroded. King Haakon V was one of the last Norwegian kings to hold power over a truly independent Norway. After his reign, the kingdom was increasingly integrated into the Danish realm, and Norway lost much of its political autonomy. While Norway was still able to maintain a certain degree of its own cultural identity, it was now bound by the political and economic struggles of Denmark. The Black Death and its devastating impact. It wasn't just political turmoil that marred this period. The Black Death, which swept through Europe in the mid-14th century, left a profound mark on Norway. In 1349, the plague reached Norway, and within months, it ravaged the land. It's said that half of Norway's population perished during this horrifying time. The Black Death didn't just take lives, it disrupted the social and economic fabric of the nation. Towns were abandoned, farmlands were left untended, and trade routes, once bustling with activity, became lifeless. But the most devastating blow was the loss of people. Entire generations were wiped out, and the kingdom's population was decimated. As a result, Norway entered a period of stagnation. It took decades for the country to recover, and even then, it would never fully regain the wealth and influence it had once held. This dark chapter in Norwegian history not only left a physical scar on the land but also cast a shadow over the monarchy that would last for centuries. Struggles for Norwegian sovereignty. In the wake of the Black Death, the power of the monarchy seemed to weaken further. The Danes took advantage of the country's fragility, further asserting their dominance over Norway. The Norwegian nobility had been decimated by the plague, leaving the country. Without the strong, local rulers who had once helped maintain order and defend the realm. This void in leadership paved the way for Danish monarchs to solidify their hold over the nation. For centuries, the Danish king, rather than the Norwegian king, controlled Norway's political destiny. Norwegian towns and cities were increasingly subordinate to Denmark, and the cultural divide between the two countries widened. Yet, through all of this, Norway managed to maintain its distinct identity through its language, traditions, and a continued sense of pride in the old ways. Norway's fight for independence, the path to union. Despite the political constraints placed on the country, the Norwegian people refused to let go of their sense of independence. Over time, there was a growing resentment toward Denmark's rule. Norwegians began to long for the freedom they had once enjoyed before the Union. In the 19th century, this desire for autonomy would come to the forefront in the fight for independence. It wasn't until 1814, after the Napoleonic Wars, that Norway gained a brief period of independence. After the war, Denmark was forced to cede Norway to Sweden in the Treaty of Kiel, but Norway wasn't ready to give up on its independence. In 1814, Norwegians convened a constitutional assembly at Eidsvoll, drafting their own constitution, one that marked the birth of a new era in Norway's history. However, despite the establishment of a new constitution, Norway's hopes for full independence were dashed when Sweden demanded the right to rule over Norway, leading to the formation of a personal union between Norway and Sweden. Though Norway retained its constitution, it remained a subject of Swedish rule, and the Norwegian people were forced to live with the frustration of being sovereign in name only. The end of the Middle Ages, a new beginning. As the Middle Ages drew to a close, the transition to the modern era began. By the late 19th century, Norway was ready for change. The rise of nationalism, the Industrial Revolution, and the increasing desire for sovereignty would eventually pave the way for Norway's full independence. In the late 1800s, political movements within Norway began to challenge the Swedish monarchy, demanding greater autonomy. The tension between Norway and Sweden continued to grow until, in 1905, Norway was finally able to break free. The union between Norway and Sweden was dissolved, and Norway became a fully independent nation once more. The Middle Ages were a time of conflict and loss, but they were also a time of resilience. Norway survived the plague, endured foreign domination, and eventually regained its independence. The struggles of the medieval period formed the foundation for the modern Norway we know today. Through the hardship and sacrifice, the Norwegian people learned the value of unity, self-determination, and the power of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Lessons from the medieval era. As we look back on the Middle Ages, we are reminded that growth, whether on a personal, political, or national level, often comes with sacrifice and struggle. The people of Norway, through centuries of challenges, managed to build the strong, independent nation that we see today. From the grip of the Black Death to the political unions and the fight for independence, the medieval era taught the people of Norway valuable lessons about perseverance, identity, and the importance of leadership. The story of Norway's Middle Ages serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for the future. The Kingdom of Norway, despite all its setbacks, eventually rose to become a free nation, one that now stands proudly in the modern world. The Age of Independence, Norway's rise to power in the modern world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this historical journey with friends. Leave a comment below if you're learning something new. Let's continue exploring Norway's path to greatness together. Norway in the Middle Ages, politics, plague, and power. The Age of Independence, Norway's rise to power in the modern world. Ah, independence. There's something magical about the word, isn't there? For centuries, Norway had yearned for it, freedom from foreign rule, self-determination, and the ability to chart its own destiny. But the road to true independence was long, twisted, and filled with unexpected turns. We've already seen how Norway fought through the plague and endured centuries of foreign dominance. Yet, in the early 20th century, the stage was set for Norway's rise, a new era where sovereignty, industrialization, and international influence would shape the country's future. This was a time of great change and reconstruction, a time when Norway would truly come into its own. The break from Sweden, the path to full independence. The year 1905 was a turning point for Norway. The union with Sweden, which had persisted for almost a century, was no longer viable. Despite having a constitution and a certain degree of autonomy, Norway's status as a semi-independent kingdom was unsatisfactory to the Norwegian people. They had long felt the weight of Swedish influence and control. The time had come for them to reclaim their full independence. At the heart of the independence movement was a profound desire for sovereignty. The Norwegian people wanted a monarchy that represented them, elected representatives in a true parliament, and, above all, the ability to govern themselves without interference from foreign rulers. On June 7, 1905, the Norwegian parliament, or Storting, made a bold declaration. They decided to dissolve the union with Sweden. Now, this wasn't an easy process, this wasn't a decision made lightly, and it came with its share of risks. But, incredibly, the dissolution of the Union was done peacefully, without the bloodshed that might have been expected. It was a masterclass in diplomacy. The Swedish king, Oscar II, who had been unable to effectively govern the Norwegians, chose to negotiate rather than fight. After a period of deliberation, Norway was officially declared an independent state. Norway's peaceful path to independence marked a pivotal moment not just for the country, but for the international community. It demonstrated that diplomacy and dialogue rather than violence could be the answer to resolving long-standing conflicts. Norway's newfound independence would set the stage for its development into a modern, progressive nation. The birth of a modern nation, political reforms and industrialization. With independence secured, the task was now to build a modern nation. The Norwegian people had a vision of a society where equality, opportunity, and progress could thrive. It was a vision of a society that, though rooted in tradition, would not shy away from modernizing and embracing the future. In the early 1900s, Norway began to undergo rapid changes in industry and technology. The Industrial Revolution, which had transformed much of Europe, had finally reached Norway. The fishing and shipping industries were the first to see significant growth. Norway's location, nestled between the North Sea and the Atlantic, made it a key player in maritime trade. The country's coastal waters were rich with resources, and Norwegian ships began to sail the world's oceans, trading goods and establishing a strong global presence. But Norway wasn't just about ships and fish. The country's agriculture began to improve, thanks to the introduction of modern machinery. Rural communities, once isolated, began to connect with urban centers. And as the country's economy grew, so did its infrastructure. Railroads, factories, and telecommunication lines began to stretch across the land, connecting even the most remote corners of Norway. The role of Norwegian leaders in shaping the nation. Behind this transformation were visionary leaders, men and women who recognized that for Norway to thrive as an independent nation, it needed strong political leadership, innovative policies, and the ability to adapt to the changing world. One such leader was Fridtjof Nansen, a celebrated polar explorer who later became a diplomat and humanitarian. Nansen embodied the Norwegian spirit of adventure and resilience. His work in international diplomacy, particularly in the aftermath of World War I, showcased Norway's ability to punch above its weight on the world stage. He became a symbol of Norwegian pride and international influence. But it wasn't just the explorers and adventurers who shaped Norway's future. Henrik Ibsen, the famed playwright, helped define Norway's cultural identity during this period. His works challenged societal norms and questioned the status quo. Ibsen's literary contributions would cement Norway's place as a key player in European intellectual circles. As Norway's political landscape evolved, so too did its role in the international community. By the time the 1910s arrived, Norway had established itself as a progressive and modern nation, a beacon of freedom and democracy in a turbulent world. World War I and the interwar years, challenges and survival. But like the rest of the world, Norway wasn't immune to the effects of the Great War. World War I, 1914 to 1918, sent shockwaves across the globe, and Norway, though neutral, felt the repercussions of a global conflict. The war disrupted trade, caused economic instability, and created uncertainty. Yet, despite the challenges, Norway managed to stay relatively unscathed compared to its European neighbors. The neutrality of the country during the war allowed it to continue trading, particularly in the vital shipping industry. The country's economic strength, bolstered by its maritime capabilities, provided a foundation on which it would continue to build. However, the interwar years brought new challenges. The global Great Depression of the 1930s had a significant impact on Norway's economy. The downturn affected the fishing and shipping industries, and Norway found itself in a state of economic crisis. Unemployment soared, and the country was once again faced with the challenge of rebuilding its economy. Norway in World War II, occupation and resistance. The darkest period in Norway's modern history arrived with the outbreak of World War II in 1939. While Norway remained neutral, the Nazi invasion in 1940 shattered that neutrality. The German occupation of Norway was swift and brutal, and the Norwegian people found themselves under the control of a ruthless regime. However, the Norwegian spirit of resilience would not be broken. Resistance movements emerged throughout the country, with brave men and women risking their lives to fight back against the Nazi occupiers. The Norwegian resistance played a crucial role in sabotaging Nazi operations and providing intelligence to the Allies. After the war ended in 1945, Norway emerged scarred but unbowed. The country had suffered greatly during the occupation, but its resilience and resolve during the war became a defining part of its national identity. Post-war Norway rebuilding and the rise of the welfare state. In the aftermath of the war, Norway faced the immense task of rebuilding. But in the post-war period, Norway would also undergo a transformation of a different kind, a transformation into one of the world's most prosperous and progressive nations. In the 1950s and 1960s, Norway established the welfare state, a system designed to provide citizens with a safety net, from healthcare and education to unemployment benefits and pension systems. The Norwegian government took an active role in ensuring that all of its people had access to the services and resources they needed to thrive. At the same time, Norway's oil reserves, discovered in the late 1960s, began to transform the country's economy. The discovery of North Sea oil would become the driving force behind Norway's economic prosperity, bringing wealth and stability to the nation. Norway, once a relatively poor and isolated country, now stood as one of the richest and most progressive nations in the world. And so, my friends, we come to the present day. From humble beginnings to a world power, Norway has proven that perseverance and vision can turn a small country into a beacon of prosperity and progress. It is a story of resilience, independence, and the strength of its people, and it's a reminder to us all that with the right combination of determination, leadership, and unity, anything is possible. Lessons from Norway's rise. As we reflect on Norway's rise to power in the modern world, there are a few key lessons that stand out. First and foremost, independence is a treasure not just for nations, but for individuals as well. Norway's journey shows us that freedom is something worth fighting for, and once it is achieved, it must be nurtured and protected. Secondly, unity and resilience can overcome even the most difficult of challenges. Whether it's the struggles of the Middle Ages, the plagues, the occupations, or the economic crises, the Norwegian people have always found ways to adapt, survive, and thrive. This is a reminder to all of us that no matter what life throws at us, we have the strength to overcome. And lastly, progress doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, effort, and vision. Norway's success didn't come easily, it was forged in the fires of hardship, and it continues to evolve today. The Age of Independence, Norway's rise to power in the modern world and Norway's role in global affairs. Here we are, my friends, in the present day, a time when Norway, a country once defined by its harsh winters and isolation, is now a global player, with a respected voice in international affairs. The journey from humble beginnings, through the storms of war and struggle, to a prosperous, modern nation has been nothing short of extraordinary. But how did Norway, a country of barely 5 million people, manage to carve out such a significant place on the world stage? What role does it play in shaping the future of our planet? Let's take a look at Norway's modern role in the global community. Norway and its global presence, a nation that leads by example. Despite its small size, Norway is a force to be reckoned with in the global community. While many might associate the country with stunning landscapes, fjord tourism, or Nobel Peace Prizes, Norway has become a leading voice in areas such as human rights, environmentalism, and international diplomacy. But what is it that sets Norway apart in the international arena? The answer lies in the country's values and its commitment to principles of justice, equality, and sustainability. Norway is known for its high level of social welfare, its commitment to the environment, and its advocacy for peaceful conflict resolution. These are the values that shape Norway's foreign policy and define its contributions to the global stage. Peace and diplomacy, Norway's role in conflict resolution. Norway's legacy of peace dates back to the days of independence. It is a country that has experienced the horrors of war and occupation, and as a result, it has come to value peace above all else. This commitment to peace was famously exemplified by Norway's Nobel Peace Prize, awarded annually in Oslo since 1901. Norway's active participation in international diplomacy is perhaps best seen in its involvement with the United Nations, UN, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and the European Free Trade Association. Norway is not part of the European Union, EU, but its commitment to European cooperation remains strong, often acting as a mediator in disputes between nations. Perhaps the most significant example of Norway's diplomatic role is its involvement in the Middle East peace process. In the 1990s, Norway played a key role in facilitating peace talks between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, which culminated in the Oslo Accords of 1993. This historic agreement remains a cornerstone of Norway's diplomatic legacy, and it is a testament to the country's unwavering belief in the power of negotiation and dialogue. Humanitarianism and global development, Norway's commitment to helping the world. Norway's commitment to humanitarianism goes beyond the peace talks. The country has long been an advocate for the rights of marginalized people around the world. Norway has consistently ranked at the top of international human development indices, and the country's approach to international development is based on the idea that sustainable progress is possible through collaboration, innovation, and education. Norway's international development aid is among the highest per capita in the world, and the country has been a significant donor to global initiatives such as healthcare, education, and poverty reduction. The Norwegian government and its citizens consistently support non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and initiatives that focus on issues like climate change, gender equality, and human rights. Through organizations like NORAD, Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, Norway has funded projects in countries such as Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Syria, focusing on rebuilding communities, providing essential services, and supporting democratic processes. In addition, Norway has also become a leader in advocating for the rights of women and children. The country's strong domestic policies, such as gender equality in the workplace and comprehensive parental leave, have made it a beacon of progressive values, and these values are reflected in its foreign policy. Environmental leadership, Norway's commitment to sustainability. In today's world, environmental issues are no longer something to be discussed lightly. The future of our planet depends on the actions we take now to preserve the environment, and Norway, with its stunning landscapes and deep appreciation for nature, has taken a leading role in addressing the climate crisis. Norway's oil wealth has often been a point of contention. After all, it is one of the largest exporters of oil and natural gas in Europe. However, Norway has also demonstrated a remarkable ability to balance its energy needs with its commitment to environmental sustainability. Through initiatives such as the Norwegian Oil Fund, which invests the country's oil revenue in sustainable global development projects, Norway has worked to ensure that its oil wealth benefits not just its people, but the world at large. The country's carbon neutrality goals and investments in renewable energy sources like hydropower demonstrate Norway's determination to protect the environment for future generations. Norway in the future, challenges and opportunities ahead. While Norway has made remarkable strides in shaping the future, there are still challenges to overcome. As with any nation, the global landscape is constantly shifting, and Norway must adapt to meet new challenges in the realms of technology, international relations, and economic inequality. The climate crisis is perhaps the most pressing issue for Norway in the coming decades. Though Norway is a leader in sustainability, the country's continued reliance on oil and gas presents a dilemma. The transition to renewable energy must be a priority, and the country will need to continue to innovate in order to reduce its environmental footprint. Another significant challenge will be how Norway can maintain its global leadership while ensuring that its domestic welfare systems continue to provide for its citizens. With a small population and an ever-evolving economy, Norway must balance economic growth with its commitment to social welfare. And finally, Norway must continue to play an active role in addressing global conflicts and promoting human rights. The world is becoming increasingly interconnected, and Norway's voice in global diplomacy will remain critical in solving problems like poverty, injustice, and inequality. Norway's journey has not been without struggles and setbacks, but the country has proven that with resilience, unity, and a commitment to its values, it can overcome any challenge. From a small kingdom on the edge of the world to a global leader in peace, human rights, and sustainability, Norway's story is a reminder that even the smallest nations can have the largest impact. And as we look to the future, I have no doubt that Norway will continue to serve as an inspiration for the rest of the world, a shining example of how a small country, when guided by the right principles, can change the course of history. The future of Norway and its role in the world. If you've enjoyed this story of Norway's incredible journey, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons can we learn from Norway's journey to global leadership? The modern world and Norway's role in global affairs. The future of Norway and its role in the world. As we near the end of our journey through the rich history of Norway, my friends, we turn our attention to the future. The road ahead is full of promise, but also fraught with challenges. The world is changing rapidly, and so must Norway. Yet, one thing is clear: the lessons of the past, the resilience, the commitment to justice, and the love for the land will guide the people of Norway in the years to come. In this chapter, we will explore the future of Norway, what lies ahead for this remarkable country, how it will continue to influence the world, and the opportunities and challenges that await its people. We will also consider the lessons that the history of Norway offers to the global community, and how they can help us all build a better future together. The power of innovation, Norway's next technological leap. One of the key areas where Norway's future looks bright is in the realm of technology. The country has already made significant strides in green energy, sustainable practices, and environmental innovation, but the next wave of innovation is set to be just as transformative. As the world accelerates towards a digital future, Norway has the opportunity to position itself as a global hub for innovation. With its high level of education, technological infrastructure, and a strong foundation in research and development, Norway is poised to lead in sectors like artificial intelligence, AI, biotechnology, cybersecurity, and renewable energy technology. But Norway is not just about technological advancements, it is about creating a future that benefits all people. For example, smart cities powered by clean energy, where technology is used to enhance the quality of life, are already being explored in Norway's larger urban areas. Innovations in electric vehicles and autonomous transportation are making Norway's cities cleaner and more connected. The future of Norway, as seen through the lens of technology, is one of sustainable growth, a future where the country continues to blend tradition and innovation to create a prosperous and inclusive society. Climate leadership, Norway's role in saving the planet. As we look toward the future, it's impossible to ignore the most pressing issue of our time, the climate crisis. The effects of climate change are already being felt around the world, and Norway, with its commitment to environmental sustainability, is in a unique position to lead the charge in finding solutions. Despite being a major producer of oil and gas, Norway has shown a remarkable commitment to reducing emissions and transitioning to renewable energy. The country's vision of a green future involves significant investments in hydropower, wind energy, and solar power, all of which have the potential to create jobs, stimulate the economy, and protect the planet. Norway's oil fund, one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, is also being used strategically to fund green projects around the globe. This forward-thinking approach ensures that Norway is investing not only in its future but in the future of the world. The future of Norway is, in many ways, intertwined with the future of the Earth. As we work together to combat climate change, Norway's leadership in environmental sustainability will continue to inspire and challenge the rest of the world. Social equality and Norway's commitment to its people. Norway's social welfare system has long been a model for the world. The country's commitment to equality, healthcare, education, and economic security has made it one of the happiest and most prosperous nations on earth. But the question remains, how can Norway continue to improve upon this already successful formula in the future? The key to Norway's future success lies in maintaining and enhancing its commitment to social equality. This includes addressing new challenges such as income inequality, affordable housing, and mental health. One area where Norway is leading the way is in gender equality. The country has made tremendous progress in ensuring that women have equal access to education, the workforce, and leadership positions. But the fight for gender equality is far from over, and Norway is continuously striving to create a more inclusive and equal society for all. The future of Norway's welfare system will also require adaptation in the face of an aging population. As the population ages, there will be an increasing demand for services and resources to support the elderly. But with a strong emphasis on community care, technology-driven solutions, and preventive healthcare, Norway is prepared to meet these challenges head-on. The future of Norway's social system is one where equality is not just a value, it is a way of life. Norway and its role in global diplomacy, continuing the legacy of peace. As we move forward into an increasingly complex world, Norway's role in global diplomacy will remain a cornerstone of its international identity. Peace, stability, and human rights are the principles that have guided Norway's foreign policy for centuries, and they will continue to do so in the future. The country's commitment to being a mediator in international conflicts, advocating for democratic values, and supporting humanitarian efforts around the world will ensure that Norway remains a respected voice on the world stage. Whether it's facilitating peace talks in conflict zones, advocating for climate justice, or supporting refugees, Norway's commitment to human rights will remain unwavering. But the future of global diplomacy is not without its challenges. As we look ahead, the world is likely to face new conflicts, new forms of terrorism, and new threats to international stability. Norway, as a neutral country with a strong reputation for peacebuilding, will play a crucial role in maintaining global peace and security. Norway's cultural legacy, a nation that honors its past. In a rapidly changing world, it's easy to forget the importance of culture and heritage. But Norway's future is not only about technology and politics, it's also about preserving the cultural identity that has shaped the nation for centuries. As Norway continues to evolve, the country must remain rooted in its history, traditions, and values. Whether it's through the preservation of Viking history, the celebration of Norwegian literature, or the promotion of the arts, Norway must continue to honor the past while embracing the future. Norway's cultural identity is one of the keys to its national unity. The sense of pride that Norwegians have in their heritage is a source of strength, and it will continue to inspire future generations to build a country that is both modern and anchored in tradition. The people of Norway, the true strength of the nation. As we close this story on the future of Norway, we must not forget that Norway's future is ultimately shaped by its people. The Norwegian spirit, marked by resilience, community, and optimism, is what has allowed this small country to overcome enormous obstacles and rise to greatness. In the future, the people of Norway will continue to face challenges, but their strong sense of togetherness and pride will guide them. Whether it's facing climate change, technological disruption, or global uncertainty, the people of Norway will approach each challenge with the same determination that has carried them through the ages. The future of Norway, my friends, is bright. And it is one that will be defined not only by technological advancements, global leadership, and social equality but by the unwavering strength and unity of its people. As we reflect on Norway's past and look toward the future, I encourage you all to think about the lessons we can take from this remarkable country. Norway's journey reminds us that small nations, guided by strong values, can make a big impact on the world. It teaches us that resilience, compassion, and a deep respect for the earth are the keys to a better tomorrow. Join me as we continue to explore the lessons of history, and let's reflect together on the values that will guide our future. If you found inspiration in Norway's journey, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What can we learn from Norway as we look to the future? Let's build a better world together. The future of Norway and its role in the world. A future guided by the past. As we stand here at the edge of this vast, beautiful land, the land that has witnessed centuries of history, triumph, and transformation, it's hard not to reflect on everything we've learned together. Norway, my friends, is not just a country, it is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. A place where the past and the future come together in harmony, where people still live by the principles of equality, justice, and a profound connection to the earth. Throughout our journey, we have seen how this small, yet mighty nation, a land of Vikings, great kings, and noble leaders, has built itself into a beacon of hope and inspiration for the rest of the world. But as much as Norway has shaped history, so too has history shaped the Norway we know today. It is a country that, in its journey, has faced challenges that could have torn it apart, yet it rose again, stronger than ever. As I look back on the rich tapestry of Norwegian history, I cannot help but think of the lessons that have emerged from its story. The lessons of resilience, innovation, and unity. From the early days of the Viking Age, when the people of Norway ventured beyond their shores in search of new lands, to the establishment of a democratic society rooted in fairness and equality. The rise of Nobel Peace Prizes and Norway's global role in peace negotiations serve as constant reminders that this is a nation that not only looks after its own but seeks to create a better world for all. The legacy of the Norwegian people. But it is not just the leaders and innovations that will carry Norway into the future. It is the people, the Norwegian spirit, that continues to inspire us. The same people who fought for their freedom during the Nazi occupation, who forged alliances across continents, and who now lead the world in climate solutions and social welfare. These people, you see, are the real heroes. They are the heart and soul of the nation. Norway is a country that doesn't just look back at the past, it uses the lessons from its ancestors, its struggles, and its victories to build a brighter future. And this, my friends, is something we can all learn from. For in every nation, there is a history, a journey through. IME, full of twists and turns, triumphs and defeats, that shapes the people who will define the future. A future built on tradition. As I've said before, the future of Norway is a blend of the old and the new. Technology, sustainability, peace, and equality are the pillars upon which Norway will build its future. But even as Norway moves forward, it never forgets its roots, the sagas of its ancestors, the strength of the fjords, and the wisdom passed down through generations. It is a nation that honors its past but looks ahead to the future. The lessons of the Vikings, courage, exploration, and the love for the land are still alive in the hearts of the people today. And so, as we face a rapidly changing world, Norway will continue to be a beacon of hope, showing us all how to blend tradition and progress, and how to live in harmony with each other and with the earth. So, my dear friends, as we conclude our journey together through the history of Norway, I ask you to think about what you can learn from this remarkable country. What values from Norway's past can you apply to your own life? How can you, like the Norwegian people, be resilient in the face of challenges, fight for justice, and contribute to building a better world for future generations? Whether you're in Norway or on the other side of the world, these lessons are universal. Strength in adversity, compassion for others, and a love for the land are values that transcend borders. And as we move into the future, let us hold on to these values, not just for ourselves but for all those who will come after us. The final reflection. In the end, the history of Norway is more than just a series of events, it is a story of survival, of courage, of dreams. A story that shows us that no matter the obstacles we face, we can rise, rebuild, and flourish. It teaches us that, no matter how small or large the nation, its people have the power to shape not just their own fate but the fate of the world. As I sit here, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I am reminded that every day is an opportunity. An opportunity to build something lasting. To make a difference. To create a future that we can be proud of, just as the people of Norway have done, generation after generation. And so, my friends, as you go on with your own lives, may you take the lessons of Norway's history with you. May you continue to walk the path of resilience, hope, and peace. The future is waiting, and it's yours to shape. Just remember, the journey is as important as the destination. Thank you for joining this journey through Norway's history. Let's keep learning, reflecting, and building a better future together. The sound of gentle waves crashing on the shore fades out. If you enjoyed this journey through the history of Norway, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Leave a comment below. What was the most inspiring part of Norway's story for you? How can we all apply these lessons to our own lives? Click the bell to stay updated on future videos as we explore more remarkable histories and life lessons from around the world. Thank you for watching. Together, let's build a future shaped by wisdom, compassion, and progress. And with that, we close the story, bringing it full circle, showing that history shapes identity, and identity shapes the future. The journey through the past to the future serves as an inspiring reminder of what is possible when a nation embraces its values, its people, and its responsibility to the world.